Hi guys, I'm Sam from the Unity of Life and welcome back to my channel for start off. Right, so what have we been doing? We've been talking about animals and we moved on to behaviour, and now what I'm going to do, if anybody's been a university student before in the past, you'll know that you have to do a dissertation, right? So I've pulled up what my dissertation was. I didn't do so well with this piece of work. That was mainly to do with the graphs and the write-up more than the experiment itself. So I'm going to explain to you what it was that I did for my dissertation, why I had to do it, because I did my dissertation at the end of 2020, partway through 2021. So because of the pandemic, when that hit, as you all know, life changed. Okay, so students couldn't go to school, they couldn't go into colleges or to university. Every single lecture, lesson, whatever it may be, was brought online, which was difficult to say the least. So the dissertations then had to be changed. You could no longer, because what had happened the year before, before the pandemic hit, you chose a few subjects that you were interested in, and you were then randomly going to be assigned to a supervisor within one of the subjects that you chose. So one of the subjects I chose was reproduction. Okay, because reproduction, it is absolutely fascinating. I am going to be doing a video on how to breed dogs correctly. It is a similar thing for cats as well, but I think a lot more consideration goes into dogs than it does cats, quite wrongly, but that's the world we're living in. So my supervisor, he looked at the reproduction of these Norwegian species of sheep. I can't remember what they were called, but these sheep are very promiscuous, so they're very flirtatious, and the females will mate with a lot of males, and they have twins, these female sheep. It's quite common to have these twins, these ewes, and he did a study where he was looking at the genetics of these twins, and he actually found, quite interestingly enough, that 75% of the lambs that they tested had different fathers, so they would actually have siblings. In humans, that is so rare for that to happen. So for that to happen, I'll just explain. The female would have had to mate with two males, one straight after the other, for that to happen. So I was thinking, what the hell am I going to do? My topic's meant to be on reproduction. I'm not allowed to leave the house because most of this happened when we were during lockdown. And we've been told that any animal experiment that we do has got to be either on our back doorstep or within walking distance, because we can't do anything exotic, because we can't go to zoos or anything public like that because they're all closed. So because I live in West Cumbria, we are still lucky enough to have red squirrels. If anybody knows, red squirrels are native to England. However, they are being slowly dying out as a species because some nut job hundreds of years ago came from America and brought a load of grey squirrels with them. And the grey squirrels are killing off the reds because they're competing for food. Greys are generally bigger than reds, and they have a disease called squirrel pox that they spread to the red squirrels, and that kills them because the red squirrels don't have the immunity to fight off this disease like the grey squirrels do. So I was like, right, okay, so it ended up not being about behaviour, reproduction, but more about their general behaviour. So it was their predator response sort of behaviour. And I noticed, because we had a lot of red squirrels in our back garden, that a lot of them had different coloured tails. They have these different colorations in their tails, right? So they either had really blonde tails, or they were all fully red and their tails were really dark red, or they had like white tails, or they would have blonde tails with white tips, or they'd have one had like a white tail with a blonde tip. Some of them have been known to have black tails, but I did not see any with black tails. I think I had 6 different colorations. I'm just gonna check that out because I've got a lot of pictures of the squirrels. No, I had 5 different colorations because some do have white bellies. So full red did not have any coloration on the squirrel whatsoever apart from red. Some squirrels just had a white tip at the end of their tail. It was still fully red. We had some that were reds, so the tail was red, but they had white bellies. And some had red tails with a blonde tip at the end of the tail, and some had a blonde tip and a white belly. And I named one Prince. And the reason I named him Prince was because he was quite a fat squirrel. He's a wild squirrel, but because the villagers leave out food for him, he's quite a bit of a greedy gut. We used to leave nuts out to encourage on gate posts to encourage the squirrels to come, and he would sit and eat all the nuts, and he would like disappear, and then you'd go out and put more nuts in, and he would appear and scoff the lot. So I did a time budget study, which I've already talked about what one of those is. So if you don't know what one of those is, I suggest you pause this video and check out the video I did on time budget studies, and then you can go back to this video once you know what one was. So what I was looking at was, does this coloration, these different coloured tails, tips on their tails, and the white patches on their belly, does this affect the way that they deal with a predator? So we use the terms bold and shy. So bolder animals, they're going to stick around the vicinity when they hear or smell a predator for longer, generally. Then once they're a little bit more timid, they're going to run away straight away. So I thought the squirrels that were fully red, they were going to be a little bit more bolder, and they were going to stick around for a little bit longer when they heard a predator than the squirrels with these lighter colorations, these white tails, white tips or blonde tips, or these white belly patches, because and they're going to run away quicker. And the point of that being is because they have light patches that breaks up their coloration, they were going to be easier to see, right? Then what a fully red squirrel was, they were going to camouflage a bit better. So what I did was I did a bit of research, and I looked up different squirrels' behaviours, and I looked up of all these different behaviours, different predators to a squirrel, and I chose 3 2 native ones, and I threw in a pine marten, which are only in Scotland. However, we did have pine martens in West Cumbria, but we're talking 200 odd years back. So if anybody doesn't know what a pine marten is, it looks a bit like a stoat. They're from the same sort of family, and we do have stoats in this in West Cumbria, and no stoat and a pine marten do not sound the same. So I downloaded these audio clips, and I had this Bluetooth speaker, and what I did is I had 2 laptops set up, so I had the speaker hooked up to one, and I would play one of the audios. It was a barn owl, a red fox, or a pine marten, okay? Because we have barn owls and we have red foxes. I did a video on human threats to animals and what we do to them, and one of them, I looked at 3 species that I've been involved, the red fox and the tiger, and I mentioned that we do hear red foxes in the vicinity at night, but we've never actually seen them. We've got camera traps. And we did have camera traps for this as well, to take some pictures of the squirrels. And we had a squirrel box, and it was all set up. So I have a conservatory, and that would see to the back garden, and the box was quite close to the conservatory doors. And we would put nuts in different places along the fence, so they're right at the very back of the garden, which is about like 20 metres away. I might be getting that wrong, I don't know. But anyway, it was quite a distance away. And we had so I had like backup locations in case we didn't see them in the back garden, but we did. And we had like a box with food out, and like I said, we put food along the fence posts as well. They're really fast, these animals. When you're trying to do an observation on them, it's really hard because they just go zoom. They're like little vampires. They've got that speed, and it's like you're trying to... You've literally got to watch what the animal's doing. You know what sound you're playing, and you can write it down really, really quick. So I did use the Animal Behaviour Pro app, which I used in the time budget study rather. I mentioned that particular app then. So I was curious, okay, because foxes and owls, they're kind of nocturnal, and they're quite large carnivores, and I believe pine martens are diurnal. So diurnal means that they're most active at dusk and dawn. And like I said, we've not had pine martens in this area for 200 years. So I was interested and intrigued to see how a squirrel was going to react to a predator that it isn't going to know. Because they won't know what a pine marten is. They don't know what it looks like. They don't know what it sounds like. They've never, or smells like. But I didn't have any of that. I literally just had sounds playing. So every time I saw a red squirrel, I'd play one of the sounds. And some red squirrels like Prince. I mean, Prince really didn't care. I mean, there was nuts there. As long as there was nuts there, he was there. He was happy. He didn't care if there was predators in the vicinity whatsoever. He was like quite high up on a fence. And even though you're playing like a barn owl, which is going to swoop down and get him, he was like, it's during the day, man. And there's a fox, And it was the wrong time of day in which I was playing these sounds to these squirrels. So Prince, he just sat there. He couldn't care less. And I ended up playing all three audios to get a reaction out of him, and I never did. Some ran off pretty quickly when they heard one, and others stayed for a bit longer. But we will go into the results and everything that I found as well. So the general setup was basically I did my research. I found out the vicinity in which these squirrels go in, how far that they travelled. I looked at that. And I worked out how far, and did diagrams of how far the different points were. So like how far the speaker was from me, how far the squirrel feeder was from me, any walls, how far they were near fences, etc. So speaker distance, from the fence, so anything from the so the speaker was 8 meters from the fence, where I was 10.3 meters from the fence. So I told you I didn't get it right when I said 20. And from one of the other fences again, it was 5.6, and from the feeder it was 2.8 meters. That was the speaker. So you can get the general gist that I was slightly further back than the speaker was, and I was still able to see these animals. So the behaviour, what do you call it? Ephogram, that's what it's called. Do you remember when I said about you have the behaviour and then you've got to describe what that behaviour is in your time? That was a basic ephogram. So this one's a little bit more complicated. So we had their normal behaviours, so we had what they were, what we were expected, so what that behaviour actually was, and then we had possible predicted changes in those behaviours. So I had things like tail wagging, so that's like your dog when it wags its tail, you're back and forth. Squirrels do that as a warning sign, not only to the predator, because they're letting the predator know that they can see. They do know the predator's there, and they do it to tell other squirrels in the vicinity that a predator is there. So vigilance behaviour is where an animal is very alert, it's looking around, it might stop what it's doing, but it is looking and it's hearing and it's taking in the environment. Foraging is just where it's looking for food. Foot stomping is an anti-predator thing. They stomp their little feet. Sometimes they'll stomp their feet and wag their tails. And these are behaviours that I picked up on some observations before I started this experiment. It's quite interesting to see. It stomped its foot because you could see a cat in this instance. And again, it's to say, I know that you're there. Let's not muck around. I'm going to let other animals know, other squirrels know that I know that you're there as well. So that's where it obviously lifts the foot up and down and goes really, really fast with its foot. Running, I shouldn't have to explain what running is, but it runs off into the next direction. And again, of course, other. So that's any experiments I wasn't expecting. Okay, so I programmed all these into the Animal Behaviour Pro app. And that gave me my results. Okay, so the results. I'm going to take you through them, because it was a little bit complicated. So generally speaking, the ones with these blonde tips and white bellies, they stayed in the vicinity for far longer than any other squirrel with any other colorations. So remember, we had blonde tips, we had full reds, and we had reds with white bellies and reds with white tips. And then the total time spent being vigilant, so how long they were vigilant, the blonde with white tips, the white tips and white bellies, sorry, they were vigilant for a bit more. They had more coloration, you know. However, the ones that moved a lot more, so these locomotion behaviours, so that was running, so the ones that ran off quicker, ones with blonde tips, and the ones that were vigilant the animal that they were vigilant for most of all was the pine marten. So remember, they don't know what a pine marten is or how much of a threat it is. But they ran off quicker when they had a fox and a pine marten than when they found an owl. And again, they performed other behaviours for longer periods of time when they heard a barn owl or fox. And they did a lot more tail wagging for the pine marten because they didn't know what a pine marten was. And actually it was quite weird because they spent more time foraging when there was a pine marten because they really didn't know any different. So that's pretty much what it was. So we'll stop it there. I don't want you to get a headache or anything. So if you like my content and everything that I've done, click on my face. Subscribe. You want to know more about animals? Click on the playlist. Don't forget to turn your notification bell and share this video. That's all for me, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.